this friend and then ignored it for 6 months.
Oh gosh.
Don't recommend that. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right, well, I tell you what, looks like we've got most people that are rolled in here are here. So anyway, today we just would like to do a small group panel, and I'm really excited to get to be a part of it with some really good coaches here. My name is Ben Nylander, and I'm kind of in charge of the room here. So this particular panel is going to be on, or specifically is going to be on pre-meet and post-meet routines, and kind of getting a chance to see maybe what some different programs do. What's really nice about the panel that we've got up here is we do have schools of different sizes. We've got some AAA schools. I'm from Jordan, we're a AA school, and then Pete, of course, is single A, double A, kind of right on the border there, but a little bit of that smaller school vibe as well. And so get a chance to kind of see what different schools and different programs are doing, and hopefully there's opportunities for questions if you have them, and so feel free to ask as questions come up. But anyway, maybe we can start by doing some introductions of coaches. You want me to go first? Okay. All right. So I'm Ben Nylander, and I'm at Jordan High School, and this is my 17th year, I believe, coaching at Jordan High School. For many years, I was both boys and girls, but now I'm just the boys head coach. I also coach cross country as well. A little bit about our school is we have about 600 students roughly in our building. We've been a district that's kind of growing. We're just a little bit outside of the Twin Cities area, and so therefore we are an area that's continuing to grow, and we've got some really nice facilities and just a really good supportive administration in our district. And so that's a little bit about us. I guess we have a program that has about we generally average about 80 athletes probably in the high school levels. That's boys and girls combined. We do tend to have a little bit more on the boys' side and a few less on the girls' side, but we're getting a little more balanced out. One thing that we really do well with is our middle school program. We have about 90 kids in our middle school program, 6 through 8 on a regular basis, and so we have a pretty good feeder program there.
I'm Pete Januszewski. I coach in Laverne. This is my 23rd year in Laverne. I was an assistant under Craig Nelson for 14 years, and then I've been the head coach basically starting in 2017. We're a 7-12 program. Our school, we generally have we're probably averaging maybe in the 80s per class, so freshman, sophomore, etc. We usually have around 100 kiddos, that's 7 through 12, that are participating in our program, and we're more girl heavy. We're usually at probably kind of that 60-40 in terms of our breakdown of the genders per se, but I'm the head boys and girls coach. Our program, we kind of have event coaches, and so and I coach the distance events and the high jump, and then I also am the head cross country coach there. So.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Hatley, and I'm the head girls coach at Rosemount High School, and then my husband Jay is the boys head coach. And so this, I believe, is my 24th year at Rosemount. I started coaching there as an assistant while I was student teaching, and then had a couple years as an assistant under Mary Eigner. She was a longtime coach there. And so then I think this is my 18th year. I want to say 18th or 19th year as the head coach. And then I'm also the head girls cross country coach, and so I've been the head coach for 3 years, and I was Chris Harder's assistant for like 15 or 16 years before that. Actually never ran cross country, but I played soccer in high school and college, and but was a distance runner in track and field, and then he asked me to be a part of his program a long time ago and went with it from there. So Rosemount High School, we are in class AAA, and I believe our current enrollment is around 2,300, but Rosemount is growing like crazy, and so our district in general is building a lot of things, and so we are going to be going up in numbers quite a bit, I think, over the next few years. And so I would say probably the amount of girls that I've had on my team the last probably 4 or 5 years, we've had about 130 girls. And then we have around 150 to 170 boys, so we have about 300 athletes between the two programs. And so, like, yep, Jay, my husband's the boys head coach, I'm the girls. We share a hurdle coach, we share a pole vault coach, we share a high jump coach. Our throwers, we have a few throws coaches, but both genders are up there at the same time. We have separate distance coaches, separate sprint coaches, and then we share jumps coaches too. So we do share quite a bit. We do same meets, we run our programs, very similarly and run them together. With that many kids though, when we have meetings and stuff like that, which we can talk about later, but we try to do that a little bit separately so that we can get their focus. But I don't know, we're in the South Suburban Conference, so I don't know if I missed anything, but whatever, there we go.
Kim Nygaard, Monticello. I have coached for, this will be like 29th year for track, the 24th or 25th year as the head. I was a head assistant, took a couple years off to have a couple girls and then came back. We have a separate boys head coach and a girls head coach, but we share everything else. We share our throwing coach, we share our jumping coaches, we share our pole vault coach. Our distance coaches, we have our two head cross country coaches as the boys and the girls. They have worked more together the last couple of years as we've kind of had some changes within our program. We have a middle school program that Lily Johnson has actually been a coach for the last couple of years, and now she's the head coach at St. Michael. Really proud of her because she went through our high school and was one of the athletes that I was very blessed and fortunate to coach. Let's see, we're 2A. We are one of the higher ranking ones in 2A, so my AD keeps saying that we might end up getting bumped to 3A, and if we do, then I think we're burnt toast again. We were always in 8AA with Moorhead and Alexandria and Bemidji and the big schools, and we had to travel 3 to 4 hours north for our section meet, and we were very lucky to have kids that would make it, but not a abundance like we were seeing now. Our squads are thriving more because we're able to compete against the same level. It's competitive, but it's not like we're the best, but it's not like we're the worst. Looking at some sad little dogs that are after the meet, like you're deflated. Our enrollment, it is steady, so I'm not really sure where we're going to be in a year or two. I've been the assistant coach for cross country under Gail Grimm. It's her 40th year, and if you know anything about cross country, she is one of, if not the very best cross country coach in the state in my world. So she lives and dies for it. So I've learned a lot from her over the last 28 years as her assistant. I'm also an assistant gymnastics coach, which our team is thriving as well. So I feel like I'm really lucky because I'm able to kind of keep that relationship piece with a lot of the girl athletes. That's about it.
Well, I think one of the biggest goals that we had, of course, was the pre-meet and the post-meet routines and stuff. And so I guess the first question that we can talk about is, on pre-meet days, what are the main objectives that you're trying to achieve? Who'd like to take that one first?
I could just, in general, I can start, I guess. For one, I would like to say that we have a successful program not because of me. It's because I have fantastic assistant coaches. And so, we definitely divide and conquer, and everyone has a unique plan for their group. And so I rely heavily on our assistants, and we all trust one another. And I think that's super important to have that relationship. And so, I feel like I'm the organizer, the facilitator, and kind of plan everything and get all the messages sent out to all the kids and coaches. And pre-meet days, what are our objectives? One, obviously make sure that all the kids know when the bus is leaving, when they're excused from school, just those little details that might slip past them, whatever, but we make sure that they know all that. And so, we talk about it at practice. I send out messages through our different systems that we have. And then, I think another thing is we listened to, Tony Holler, however many years ago here, and with the Feed the Cats ideal. And, we've really kind of shifted over to that mentality where, less is more. You know, give 100% all of the time, and we get you home at a decent hour. And you know, we try to have that every day, but especially on a pre-meet day, where we want them to go home. We want them to be mentally and physically healthy. And I feel like since we've kind of changed our thoughts and ways of how we do our program with that, yeah, we have happy, healthy kids, and that's super important. So yeah, just logistics and get all the information out there, get them home quickly, and you know, really build confidence and talk about our goals and stuff as a team and individuals, and that's kind of how we walk into it. So
I can sure go next. Yeah, so for us, you know, kind of the same thing. Like, I think making sure that logistics are taken care of, make sure that the kids know, you know, what's going to be going on the next day, what the meet goals are is always, of course, a big objective. Just in terms of like the energy systems that we work, it's not a super hard day, but we are going to be targeting our speed system, our ATP system. It's also for us, it's kind of our main time in the week when we can focus on relay exchanges. I feel like our other days we're usually busy doing other things, and so that's just kind of a nice day for exchanges, making sure that the kids feel comfortable and are ready to go for the next day. It's also one of the times where we kind of highlight blocks. We do more on our pre-meet days, and then also like for us, ours are a little bit of like a what do you need type day. So we kind of give a little more ownership to the kids, and it's their responsibility to make sure that they accomplish what they need to accomplish on those days. So we're a little less structured. We still have structure, but it's a little bit less structured maybe than a normal day would be. And we kind of have kids that are finishing, not necessarily in a big group all at once, but kind of as they finish up with what they need to accomplish. And we also do usually some approach work and like approach work and run throughs and stuff like that for our field events as well.
For us, a lot of same things that they're talking about. I post lineups outside of my door that has the leave time and bus time, and I'll use communication in terms of that as well. But I really also try to stress to the kids, like, it's your responsibility to check the lineup, know what events you're in, because you're not always in the same events every week. You know, and kind of what Sarah said is our coaches coach their events, and so they're all doing their thing to get their kids ready, whether they're jumps coach or we do spend time on handoffs and stuff on our pre-meet days. For me on the distance side, I start off after we get going on things. I actually start off, we do 10 to 15 minutes of visualization, and we kind of do race scenarios, and from both sides of things, you know, oh, you're running your best race of your life, and oh man, you got halfway into your mile and you're feeling like crap. How are you going to respond? How are you going to finish the race? And so we do take time to go through that mental rehearsal and focus on that side of things. And there are times also where I'll read through a list of affirmations, and I just kind of play some music lightly, and we just kind of walk through you know, what should your race look like from warm up to, you know, just keeping that routine so that, you know, you calm those nerves and you're ready to go on race day. So
similar to what they've all said, I actually looked into our throwing coach. I know nothing about throwing. I can barely lift a shot. So I typed up a packet if you're interested, but that's what they do, and it's kind of some light working on technique. Our distance coaches, very similar in the way Gail and Tony are, that they do some extra stretching and drills that are more specific to a distance runner, making sure that their hands and their glutes and their quads are loosey-goosey. They go for an easy shakeout run. They might do some easy drills when they come back. Our jumping coach works with Corey and I quite well at that point, because with jumping, obviously, and hurdling and sprinting and exchanges, they all tend to be usually the same athletes. On my side, I always call it the rule of three. So we have the same mini little ladder pre-meet every time. They do a 50, a 1, a 150, a 1, a 50, and then we jog it through the first time, and then the second time we kind of build into speed on each of them. The girls know exactly what's expected, so they get there, we get done doing our stuff, they go right into it, and then if they are a jumper, some of their 50s, that's part of what they're doing. The rule of 3, they do 3 three-step approaches and 3 run-throughs at their mark to make sure that they're pretty much on. We look at the weather for what the next day is supposed to be, what direction is the wind coming, so they're prepared for that. Is there gonna be a wind? So we actually have them do a 3 with the wind, but then we also, just in case, because we all know how that is with track, you can't expect that it's gonna be a perfect day and you might have to do a jump or something into the wind. So our jumping coaches and our vaulting coaches do some different things, which they're, again, that's their area, and I know what they're doing is the right thing because they've had success. Sprinting, I am really weird about my relays. Lily knows that. You have to have 3 perfect exchanges for each. So the first runner coming into the second runner, they have to do 3 right in a row. If they get 2 and the third one is a debacle, they have to start all over again. Let's see, hurdles. I'm very dialed in on what that expectation is too, but they know what it is. They do a couple to the first for warming up, and then they do a couple to the third for hundreds, and they just do 1 to the 300s as their second ladder. So our second little mini ladder is where they're kind of specializing in doing what they need, more independent. I believe in, as a mom, I didn't want to hold their hand, I don't want to enable, I want them to be empowered and independent, because when we get to a meet, we're all over the place, and I want them to be able to know kind of what they're doing. Corey, the boys coach, very similar. He was always Dave's assistant over the last few years, and last year when he became the head, the 2 of us realized how much we have in common with what our philosophy is. So our boys and our girls, sprinters and hurdlers and jumpers for the first time in years were a little bit more combined versus separate. And at meets we saw that our team was much more, I don't know, together, cohesive. We believe in supporting each other, but also our other teams in the Mississippi 8. And the boys have always been kind of too cool for that. And again, I don't know if it's a boy thing, but they watch the girls and how we are just cheering, encouraging every athlete on, because it's not about our team so much, it's about the passion of the sport. And those of you that are part of the Mississippi 8 or know that or have seen it, our coaches and our teams, we get to the section and the state meet and we are as one team, and that's kind of what we talk about the pre-meet as well. Just remember, it's team, individual, okay, fine, but it's a team philosophy, and I want them also to enjoy supporting others. And I look at someone like Lily and many of our other former athletes, and they have bought into that, and I'm hoping that it continues. So, pre-meet.
Yeah. So kind of like already with our objectives in mind, and I know we've all kind of touched on some specifics of what we do, but just more specifically, like what would the structure format of a practice look like on a pre-meet day? And I can most certainly go first here. So like for us, like on a pre-meet day, what it's going to look like is we're going to typically start with a team meeting. We do have separate head boys and girls coaches, as these coaches have talked about too. We also share coaches, so all our assistant coaches are shared between the programs. And so we'll sometimes have a combined team meeting where it's boys and girls. Sometimes we'll have separate meetings depending on what we want to talk about. But our programs are pretty close in terms of that. But yeah, we'll talk about logistical information for tomorrow. We'll talk about some meet goals that we might have. Just anything that we think is important for that. Typically then what we would do is we have different warm-ups for different days. And so we have warm-ups that we do more on recovery days, and we have warm-ups that we have that are more speed-based. So we do a speed-based warm-up, speed day warm-up. Sometimes we would add some plyos into that if it's maybe an early season meet. But as we get more into championship meets, we probably wouldn't do that. Then what we do at this point, a lot of times our throwers will venture off and they'll go start doing their own thing. I did talk to our throws coach, just gonna ask him what specifically he does. He said he usually has them do maybe from 3 to 5 throws, really focusing on getting good crisp throws with some good rest in between. But again, I will admit I have my thumb on most things on our team, but throwing is probably our entity that I'm probably least involved with. And so I really trust, we're fortunate to have a really good throws coach, and so I'm very trusting that what goes on with them. What we actually do on our pre-meet days is actually something that I really enjoy. It's become part of our program over the last couple of years. And we put in wickets. And so while we're doing our warm-up, we'll have our assistant coaches setting up usually 2 sets of wickets. And so if you don't know what a wicket is, it's these little 6-inch hurdles, and there's little spacings that you do between them. It's kind of a little bit of a pain to set up because they increase in distance as you go, and there's a little bit of a mathematical pattern that you have to put them in. And so it can be kind of a pain. But so they'll usually do that. We usually set up 1 set that's a little bit shorter, 1 set that's a little bit stretched a little bit longer. So generally it's boys and girls, but some of our top girls might come on over and use the boys set if they're fast enough and more explosive. But what we'll do is we'll do usually 4 wicket runs, and so it's maximal velocity, trying to get our kids to run fast, using good running form, stepping over the top of the wicket gates. Early in the season, we might do 30 meters, and then as the season goes on, we're going to try to extend that out and make that a little bit longer. And so we found that that's really been helpful, and it's also really cool because it's one of the few times when our distance runners in particular get to run maximal velocity, so it's kind of part of our program there where we've really seen, especially with our 800 runners, that's really been good for them to be getting that. So then usually at this point, we now kind of break down into our sprints and our distance groups. Distance, of course, will go off and they'll do a run, usually nothing too fancy, it's just a pretty easy run, usually 3 to 4 miles, kind of in that ballpark. When our distance runners get back, usually they'll do some 4x8 exchanges. We usually have them do some barefoot striders. Usually we'll do 4 to 5 by 100 meter barefoot striders. And then they'll do their abs and they'll stretch and possibly foam roll, and then they'll take off. The rest of our team kind of goes with the sprints group. And one thing that we do in our program is if you're a sprinter, you also have to choose a field event. And we're small enough where we can get away with that. We're kind of on the verge, like we're getting a little bit big enough where it's getting a little harder to do that, but it's actually been really good for our program in the sense that from a true team perspective, we have a lot more kids to draw from when we need to have that second triple jumper, and we need to have that second long jumper, that second high jumper, because we're always trying to build those programs. But anyway, so what we will do is, this is kind of where it gets a little more individualized and a little more, where kids have to kind of take a little ownership. Typically what we'll do is we'll have blocks set up in one location. We'll have our 4x1 relays working. We usually start with our 4x1 relays. If you're not on a 4x1 relay, you might be overdoing blocks. Then when our 4x1s get done, we might go over and do some 4x2 exchanges. And again, if you're not on the 4x2, then you might be overdoing blocks. We also might have our athletes that are hurdlers. They might be doing their blocks over 1 to 2 hurdles at that time. So again, it's a little bit, I don't want to say chaotic, but it's definitely a little more, the athletes are kind of going where they need to go, and we're trying to help them to find those correct spots. And then in the second part of practice, that's usually where then we'll set up the high jump, and we'll head on over to our field events, and the kids might do a couple approach run-throughs on the long jump or the triple jump, or get their step for high jump. They might do a few pole vaults, run-throughs, whatever it might be. And then we're doing kind of abs and waves, and then we're stretching and kind of getting out of there. But again, it's a little bit of it's a little bit where students are really deciding what's best for them and making sure that they get that in. And so we will have kids finishing up in different waves.
I feel like I kind of said that when I was going into both. The only thing I probably would add is that it does look chaos. But if you're giving them, and they know the older kids are taking power and control, making sure the younger ones know exactly, here's your job, we need to get this, and when you're done, you're done. And you get out quick.
Yeah, for me, with coaching distance and high jump, a lot of times my pre-meet, it's just a lighter run with some strides and things like that for my distance kiddos. So I a lot of times put that ownership on them to take care of that, so that I can be at the high jump pad, and we typically get marks out and get some run-throughs in. We maybe do a few scissor kicks. I kind of have adopted kind of a 3-3 and 3 run-throughs, 3 scissors, and 3 jumps, and we're out of there. And just so you get that confidence, and try to get them to end on a good one that they're positive and confident about, and you know, and then, but yeah, generally lighter in nature and, you know, just trying to focus in on what we want to accomplish for the next day, so.
So for a typical pre-meet day for us, I guess I would, actually, let me start over. So I would say earlier in the season, before any meets start, like we will have a full team meeting, and that meeting might go a little longer, just with kind of expectations and how a track meet works and all that kind of stuff, where you give all the details, especially like these kids that have never done track before and they're, you know, and then once it gets time for, you know, beginning of the season meets, then we'll have a meeting on the day before meet and everything, but I try to keep that to be maybe 5 minutes. Just get through the important details, otherwise you can see it in their eyes where they're like, oh, she's still talking. But, you know, and then probably in about May, you know, when championship season kind of gets going and rolling, we'll have another one of those meetings and, you know, start talking more about, you know, what a championship meet is like, and whether that's the JV championship, whether it's true team sections, true team state, whatever it might be. You know, and just re-stress like what our goals are, and let's look at where we're at and what can you do as a teammate, you know, to make the team the best you can be. So that, you know, we have those longer meetings so that again, that pre-meet day, they're not having to listen to me be long-winded about all the things. So, yeah, I try to make our meetings real short and quick, and that's with everyone. And then, you know, as soon as I'm done, then we kind of divide and conquer. So throwers go up the hill, our jumpers, sprinters, hurdlers, that large group, they warm up together, and then the distance kids warm up in their own separate area too. And then, you know, from there, after the warm up, I have the distance runners, like that's my group. And so, you know, they do their typical pre-meet days. I mean, yeah, like you said, 4 miles maybe, something like that. Kind of depends on the time of year and all that kind of stuff. And then they have a routine. I mean, I post everything for the week. They know exactly where it is, like especially now with phones and everything. You know, they just pull it up. They're like, yeah, we got it. I don't sometimes feel like I'm needed, but they're kind of on it. So they know what they're supposed to do. You know, after their run, we typically do some hip mobility or hurdle mobility drills, striders, some core, that kind of stuff, and really, again, try to get them in and out. You know, I wouldn't say anyone is there for more than an hour on a pre-meet day. And then, you know, as far as like sprinter, jumper, hurdlers, you know, once they're done warming up, it's hurdlers go see Coach Williams, and, you know, jumpers are gonna go to their area. And anyone that might be, you know, sprinter only, then they'll stick with our sprint coach. And then, so they'll go through all of their, you know, proper warm-ups and that kind of thing for whatever event group it is, besides what they did as a general group. You know, the hurdlers, Park Williams is our hurdle coach, and where's he from? I don't remember, I don't know that, anyways. But, so he's our hurdle coach. He does a great job with those kids. I mean, they know exactly what they're supposed to do every time that they, you know, come over and see him. And so they get going on their drills and go through all the things for hurdling. And then as far as, I talked to, so I have a little script here because I talked to all my coaches beforehand, but, you know, he had said that they never go over more than 3 hurdles in the 1s or the 110s. At full speed, everything is always out of blocks, everything's always in spikes. And then as far as the 300s, they never go over more than 2 hurdles, again, out of blocks, in spikes. Everything is max effort, so there's maximum rest in between. And so, and then, you know, as far as like total reps between the 1s and the 3s, like never more than 6 to 8 total reps. You know, we want to keep the day as light as possible so they're ready to go for the next day. Then high jump, talked to my high jump coach, and he had said that he never introduces a new technique or a new thing to think about the day before a meet, never ever. A lot of the coaches that I spoke to, you know, they said that really it's kind of, the kids maybe pick 2 things to focus on that they're in control of, you know, for a meet, and that way, you know, that's their goal, they can focus on that, and you're not overwhelming yourself or anyone else with too many other things to think about. And so keep it simple, do 2 things really well, and good things will hopefully come out of that. But high jumpers, you know, they'll do a few run-throughs, but never more than 2 attempts, and they just go at opening height, so that they can leave the day with confidence and feel good about the next day. You know, again, sprinters, they're all gonna come out of the blocks. You know, we work on exchanges throughout the week. So, you know, as far as a pre-meet day goes, we'll do a couple of exchanges probably. But again, we've been working on it, so we try to keep that pretty light. And then as far as like jumpers, like horizontals, they typically do a few run-throughs, just making sure they're on their mark. You know, they don't really ever take a full jump. They're just running through, making sure that they're on. My husband Jay, he's one of our jumps coaches, and he says this was something that he said that one of the best things I learned from a high-level collegiate sprint coach is the only thing I've encountered that works 100% of the time is rest. When in doubt, rest. So don't overdo it the day before or the day after. We'll get into that. Our throws coaches, I mean, they're a different animal, but in a good way. I mean, they're so precise with their rotations and groups and things that they're in, and you know, it's this group's in the weight room and this group's up in the circle, and so you know, their biggest focus is technique throughout the season, and also telling the kids like you're not going to necessarily always PR every single week, you know, but your technique is going to be really strong, really good, and increasing and doing well. And those PRs are going to happen when they should happen. You know, they work on macro cycles and that kind of thing, and very much so focused on when are we trying to peak. You know, when are you trying to do the best? And so they kind of work through meets sometimes. But again, for them, it's what are one or two things that they're trying to improve on? What are one or two things that skill-wise that they can do at that next meet? But other than that, I think we covered it.
So a lot of common threads, I think, between all four of us. Before we move on to like the post-meet days, does anybody have any questions about pre-meet stuff?
So, I don't know, I'm assuming that you work with 7 through 12 or just 9 through 12?
Me?
All of you?
Oh, okay. So me personally, so we actually have separate middle school coaches.
Yep.
So what we do is we do have separate programs, but we kind of work to stay organized to split the track. So when we're at the field events, they're on the track. When they're on the track, we're at the field events. So we do try to organize that way. Yep.
Monticello's lucky, we built a new track 8 years ago. So we have our high school team 9 through 12 at the high school, and our middle school kids are at the middle school on our older track.
We're a 7-12 program, so all of our kiddos are together 7 through 12. So,
Right.
We're a 9 through 12 with a handful of middle schoolers from year to year.
All right, so Pete, I'm assuming that you, because I'm 7 to 12, and Class A. So your pre-meet, if you have a Tuesday, Thursday meet, maybe you only go Tuesday, maybe you only go Thursday. But if you have a Tuesday and Thursday meet, your pre-meet's also gonna be your post-meet on Wednesdays.
In Monticello,
And-
we've chosen to do 1 meet a week now.
Yeah.
So we don't have a Tuesday, Thursday, like our AD used to push for. We talked about having a recovery day or a
Right.
technique day or a rest day.
And they're just trying to save money, but.
Yeah,
Okay.
so now we're 1 meet a week.
And so, and then what do you do? I mean, I know what I do, but I wanna hear what you do, get good ideas for what do you do with the your junior high kids / junior kids on a pre-meet day when you're working with the varsity kids?
Yeah, and it just would depend on where are they at, level-wise, you know, everything.
Okay, you got the kids that aren't
Yeah,
at varsity,
And-
cause I know you probably work with some 7th years
Yeah.
that you're using on the varsity, every
Yeah.
class in school does.
yeah, and, I really try to be cognizant of how much they race in a week, you know, if there is a junior high meet or whatever, they're either not gonna be in a varsity race if they're capable of doing that, or if they are, it's maybe one race or
Okay.
vice versa, and, you know, so I take that into
consideration, because there is value for them to race against kids their own age, but yet you also just not, less is more, you know. I
Right.
just, pretty cautious with that, because if you ran them every time that they could run, they wouldn't make it till the end of the season, so.
But I
And
guess
then-
what my
sorry.
question was, so like, we're working with the varsity kids, so, and I don't know, you're blessed with having a lot of coaches, I'm not.
Yep.
So then what do you do? What do you do?
We're event groups, so
So you
like
still,
I'm.
so you have those kids that aren't competing the next day.
Yep,
still work
they
with
might
the
not
varsity-
necessarily do the same things that the kids that are
And I've done
competing.
that too. I
Yep.
just wondering if you say.
There,
you got-
and
here's
and
your-
that happens a little bit more on the, there are rare cases, like, for my distance kiddos, if it's a pre-meet day, it's okay that those other kids that aren't racing are going lighter. I might have them do some strides or maybe a few faster efforts afterwards, but it's okay that they get a rest day in there too. They don't have to work out, as frequently, either, because sometimes, like, one thing that I'm wrestling with right now is, what I'm finding is kids don't play anymore. And so even doing the neuromuscular stuff and things like that, we're finding sometimes we have to really pay attention to how much of that we're doing and how frequently, because they're sometimes getting sore because they're not used to doing change of direction and all of that, because they're not outside running around like I was, every single day. And so, that's something that, I personally have been kind of wrestling, okay, how can we maybe even develop a tier system of, okay, my first year kiddos are doing these kind of exercises, and then my second tier kiddos, now they can add a little bit more in, and now my varsity, the long-term kiddos, now they can do kind of the full range of stuff. And so that's something that, like I said, it's just even your extra ancillary stuff, that's what I call it, before, pre and post meet, just making sure that you don't overdo that either, so.
And going back to your other question about like where you have the meet on Tuesday and the meet on Thursday, the way I would deal with that would be, I would do more of a true pre-meet on Monday. I'd look at the two meets and I would say like for us, we actually run into this on occasion as well, where we have like a conference, like unlimited type quad meet, lower importance or whatever, but still important especially for our JV athletes. And then of course, like our varsity athletes would be maybe more at the invitational on Thursday or something like that. We would maybe I'd plan my Thursday meet first, and I'd say, these are the events I really want my varsity athletes to compete well in on Thursday. And then I'd work backwards, and I'd say, okay, well, if this kid's gonna be loaded up with 4x8, 4x4 on Thursday, well, what's Tuesday gotta look like to be a little different, right? So maybe it's just one event on Tuesday, and it's maybe a different event than what they're doing. Maybe it's like just a mile or something like that. And then on the Wednesday, the day in between, I wouldn't look at it like another pre-meet day. I would look at it like you really need to recover. And so honestly, I'd probably even do like, compared to like what a normal recovery looks like, I would probably just warm up and like stretch out, even just not hardly do too much of anything, and just kind of get yourself ready for the next day. And then Friday, the day after the Thursday meet, I would probably do something that's more aerobic based. That's where my quote unquote like more aerobic type workout, like at 70%, 80% type stuff would be for my sprinters or something like that. But I think that's how I would because we do run into that as well, and that's kind of how I navigate a week like that.
I like we're doing similar things. I just wanted your thoughts.
Yep.
Thank you.
So and then moving on then, so post meet days, we're kind of getting into that a little bit now. What are our main objectives that we're trying to achieve?
Recovery, I'd say. So, I talk a lot to the kids. We're only together for 2 hours. If we had to do everything that was important for you to be successful at practice, we could be here for 6 hours. And so, we talk a lot about recover like a champion, just like you want to compete like a champion and give your best effort. You have to do the same thing
in your recovery. You know, especially after a hard workout day or a hard meet, I'm constantly reminding the kids, make sure you do, I just call them little things. And so from drinking enough water, we really hammer on sleep. Whether or not they buy into it or not is a whole nother thing, but you know, sleep is when your body heals. And so if you're not getting enough sleep and consistently doing that, then you're not going to be where you want to be at the end of the year, or you might end up hurt and you're not going to be able to achieve what you were hoping to achieve at the end of the year. And so a post-meet day, you know, is usually again lighter, but we might, you know, hit into that lower end of the moderate range if you're kind of rating it that way. Volume might go up a little bit, you know, so if we're doing 3-4 miles on the pre-meet day, you know, like my top end boys might do a 5-6 miler the day after the meet. And a lot of it is, for me, is individualized. You know, I had a girl cross country. She finished the meets for the races for the first time in like 2 years because she just battles injury stuff, and so she only ran twice a week and cross trained every other day of the week, and we just did different ways of getting that. So every kid's different, and so we just try and, you know, meet their needs. And you know, if they're, man, I'm really sore, well, why don't you just get a little shakeout and go and foam roll and get some icing or Epsom salt bath in and those kinds of things. So, but that's kind of a post-meet overarching. So
We have a team chat about what went well, what didn't well. We don't make them feel poor if they did something bad or they didn't like the performance. We have this saying, the movie Frozen, let it go. That's our mantra. If something didn't go well, you gotta let it go and move on. But what would you change differently, and how can they reflect? So we used to do a lot of talking about it, and now we do some journaling so they can kind of like write down, these are the things that went extremely well, these have been some things that I would change. Same thing, like what Dave said, it's more of a recovery day. We still are going to do a workout. I'm not big on Saturday practices. Our distance coaches want a Saturday practice, but sprinters, they want to sleep. So we have to chat about, what do you want? Do you want to have Friday be a little bit more intense, or do you want to go home and come back on a Saturday morning? And in May, they want to come back on Saturday morning because that's the point where we want to be totally recharged and ready to go and give 100% quality. We do a lot of rolling, we do a lot of hip flexor activities with our hurdles. We are very lucky we have some bikes in our shed, so the kids who really need to be off their legs can bike, but they're still getting that lactic acid and that buildup and resting that tissue, but in a different way. We recognize all athletes, not just the top performers. In fact, we try as much as we can to really look at our JV performers. That's going to be the future of the program, versus the top dogs are always getting acknowledged and recognized, especially going in the championship part of the season. So early season, we're really like looking at who improved, who was a good leader, who was motivated and helped with the girl who, you know, she false started her first race and teared up because she dropped a baton. We're looking at girls who persevered and they came back, and the boys team is very, very similar, that we are trying to build a team and not an individual, and looking at the recovery piece and that team component.
Yeah, so I mean, I think a lot of the same things. You know, obviously our goals are just to get kids to recover. We try to avoid any full speed stuff. We do a different warm up on a recovery day or endurance day that's a little bit less intense than we would on a speed day. We also do, I didn't have it written down, but we kind of do something similar where one of our coaches will track the kids' PRs, and you know, we'll try to recognize those kids that get PRs. And a lot of times, it's, especially early in the season, it's the kids that aren't necessarily your elite athletes that are going to get those PR cards. So it's a good way to recognize them, because of course the kids that are maybe your top athletes, they probably PR'd at the state section type meet last year, and it's going to take them a while to get back to that point again. So it is a great opportunity to do some of that stuff. And so yeah, we will have a little reflection on the meet, and then we'll do later type stuff. So.
I would say we're pretty similar. I don't know if I have anything different to say. I mentioned that, like, whether you're a feed the cats person or aware of it, again, kind of that whole less is more. We've had far less injuries and I think far happier kids over the last like 6 years. And I mean, if it's a big meet, the sprinter, jumper, hurdler type, they get a sprint holiday, we call it. And we don't see them that day. And they get a mental and physical break and they come back the next day recharged and ready to go. And we have just seen like awesome efforts out of that, which is kind of having that day to get away. I also think, kind of like what you were asking about, you know, if it's like a varsity meet and we give that big group, you know, just a holiday, it gives us an opportunity to really focus in and give those JV kids the, you know, the attention and detail of what they deserve. And so it's kind of nice. I mean, there's some opportunities throughout the season in which we get to really help out some different groups, you know, without all of the kids there, because we do have quite a few kids on our program total. But, and even, you know, some days we might not give them completely the day off. Like that might be a good day to do a good deep team bonding. You know, I've had a yoga instructor come in and do like team yoga, whether they are sprinters or distance or throwers. Like we go in the gym and they've done yoga. And, you know, it kind of gives them a time for them to all be together and do something together, and it's kind of fun and different. You know, yeah, I think team bonding is kind of a nice day to do on a post-meet day, you know, where it's just a little different. So, I don't know, I mean, we've done like scavenger hunts, you know, where we force like, yep, all right, your group has to consist of a sprinter and a distance and a thrower and you know, then a couple more and meet someone new and then, you know, do things like that. So, just kind of a day to not be so heavy mentally or physically.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, we probably have touched on this as well, but with those objectives in mind, what's a structure format for your post-meet days? And I know for us, it would typically just look like, we will occasionally do the day off as well after a big championship type meet. We also do the occasional game day, which we probably about every 3 weeks we'll do a game day, which is just kind of a fun way for the kids to get to know each other and have a little fun with stuff. But yeah, typically, like what we do is we'd have our little team meeting, reflect, pass out our PR cards, those types of things. Lighter warm up for that day. Our throwers, I was talking again to our throws coach, and he was saying that what he typically would do is he talks to the kids about listening to their body, and so, you know, making a few throws but not overdoing it. If you're tired, you know, go a little easier, that kind of thing. We do kind of split up into our 2 main groups. Typically what we would do is our sprinters, jumpers, we don't do much field event stuff on our recovery days. We try to keep it more just low-key, like maybe a lot of stuff at 70% type intensity work, lighter stuff like that. And so we'll do different workouts. Like one of the workouts that we really like to do are for cross fields, where kids kind of run zigzag patterns across the football field. They'll zigzag cross, walk the short end of the field, zigzag across, walk. And so we do some stuff like that. We'll do some light strider work on the turf. Nothing too crazy. Distance runners typically will do either an easy run, or one thing that we do that I picked up from Jerry Pop from Wilmer. He's very big on these, which is they're called recovery sets. And so our distance runners will run 2 minutes easy, go 1 minute up tempo, go 1 minute easy again, and then walk for a minute. And so that would be 1 set, and you can do anywhere from 8 to 12 sets of those. But you know what I found is our kids really like them, and it's just a good way for our kids to. They're not super hard, and so the kids do feel recovered, and yet you can get an easy 40 to 60 minutes of aerobic recovery in on those days, even though it's not super hard for the kids. So those are kind of typical things for us, and then typically do some abs and stretching and stuff like that at the end. So I know you guys maybe have touched on some of those already through what you talked about, but if you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I do similar. We'll celebrate PRs, and we have a top 10 list that was started by our previous head coach, and so I've kind of continued with that. And so we have performances that crack into that top 10. We announce those, and those kinds of things, just trying to celebrate across the board. So when you look at PRs, that can be any kid. And like you mentioned, I wouldn't disagree. A lot of times, especially early season, it's gonna be your newer athletes and they're gonna get the PRs, but then also having that discussion of you're not going to, somebody else I think mentioned it, you're not gonna always PR, but, so when that doesn't happen, and, same thing is, just stay on the positive side of things, even at the meet, you can tell when kids are hard on themselves and so forth. I tell them, you got 20 minutes, you feel bad about what happened for 20 minutes, but then you need to flip it around and reflect, and what's one thing, I'd keep it small, 1 to 2 things that you could have did differently that maybe would have made the outcome more towards what you wanted it to be. And so kind of that same thing, otherwise you can get into that, they shouldn't come the next day, still sulking about what happened the day before, so.
I guess with like pre and post meet days, something that I don't feel like I can do with the whole team because it's just too many girls. But with the distance runners, I just have a smaller group. I think that I have them, set goals and they write things down and that kind of stuff. But I started over the last couple of years just having them like as a group, everyone has to share a goal out loud. So sometimes I think, it's one thing writing it down like for you to think about, but I think there's another good component to like saying it out loud in front of your teammates and having them hear that. And then, maybe hopefully, a couple kids might remember like, hey, you said you wanted to do this, and they might congratulate you on that. And so, I think like just saying things out loud is a nice touch. And then that gives us an opportunity to, come back to that like a post-meet day or, soon after the meet at some point and just kind of go back like, hey, how many people reach their goals? And I really try to emphasize like it can't just be a time goal. Can you improve on your warm up or your cool down or your whatever it might be, attitude, that kind of thing. And so we just regroup and talk about it again. So.
And so is that a weekly kind of thing that you do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We talk about control the controllables, what things are under your control, what things aren't. You can't control who's in the race, you can't control how well they run, so you have to look inwardly. One thing that we try to throw in once or twice a year, and sometimes a little bit more, is kind of getting that heterogeneous grouping of 6-8 kids, and we have one kid stand in the middle and the rest of the kids go around and say one thing positive about them, be it a teammate, be it their performance, could be just their personality, those kinds of things, and then each person gets a chance to stand in the middle and they get 7 or 8 positive comments from their teammates. That just kind of helps uplift them and see that they're making progress towards what they want to accomplish. So.
Does anybody have any questions on post-meet training? Yeah.
I guess in a similar vein to that, do you guys have any like traditions that you do if people get PBs or personal records?
So like I said, we do the PR cards, but that's what we do.
Yeah, I don't have.
Spicing it up or anything?
I think one of the things that we find is there will be some meets where you'll have 40, 60. It's like, some kids will PR 3 times, in the same meet, especially some of the, like that first nice weather meet that you get of the year kind of deal. And so the challenge is it has to be like whatever the reward is going to be, it's got to be kind of small because you're going to go through a lot. Like you can't go too big, otherwise you're giving out a lot of stuff. And it's got to be something that you can get out quick too, because in the nature of the spring, of course, it just, there's a quick turnaround time, and then all of a sudden you're moving on to the next thing. So, so I think if you can come up with any ideas, those are the suggestions I would have. Try to keep it relatively cheap and simple, and something that you can get them out pretty quick and easily.
I have a question. Are yours, cause I do that too, in the elementary, they've got the shape cutters, so I make shoes, and I handwrite all mine, but yeah, there could be some where there's 20 to 30 in a meet, so are yours pre-printed, or do you handwrite, like,
Yep.
name, data stuff in
Good
there?
question. That is actually one that I kind of that I have an assistant coach working. But yeah, traditionally what he's done is he's gonna have the actual little card pre-printed, and it'll have like a little spot for the name, and then usually the event, and then just what the performance is. It's nothing super, but and you know, so like I don't know, like Jordan PR card or something like that, whatever. But
Yep.
and then he's got them. You know, they're all like little squares about I don't know like. What is that? 4 inches by 3 inches or something like that, you know, and then real quick to give out. The one challenge though the one thing I find with those is, you know, a lot of times we'll meet outside, and now you just give kids a bunch of little scraps of paper, and it's like, oh, now what do you do with them, right? Because it's just gonna blow away. So we do actually debate constantly. You know, would it be better? I know when I was in high school, actually, my coach, he would do. Like suckers or something like that, right? You know, so you throw out suckers for every. I mean, and that was something that worked really good for our program. And again, then the kids actually get something and they can eat it, and then it's. I guess you still have a stick for garbage or whatever. But yeah, that's the one thing I do try to think about too. Is like, you know, the bad thing about the paper is it kind of is just gonna blow away, or it can be garbage, you know, stuff like that. So.
For ours, we have our managers, so the shoes, we put them on their lockers, so then you'll have some athletes, their
No,
lockers
that's a good idea. Because then
covered.
it's yeah. Then you don't have that piece of yeah.
Yeah, and then we just take the time to acknowledge them
Right.
during our posting
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of good ideas out there. It's just a matter of like finding what works, you know, for you and your program and stuff. Yeah.
That outside piece, years ago, I started doing flying Hawaiians. So we acknowledge someone from each of the different groups, a thrower, a sprinter, a hurdler, who am I missing, distance. But then also, so they all get the Hawaiian lays at practice the day after the meet. But then if there is someone who has a personal best, they get an extra lay, the Hawaiian lay, or the flying Hawaiian. There again, like you said, when you're outdoors, you're losing tons of things that you're, as the coach, picking up garbage after the meet, but they have to wear it. So they wear it on the wrist, they wear it as a pony, they wear it around their neck, and they embrace it. So you go to their graduation parties and you see the years and years of the lays that they have laid out on their montage of track awards. Easy, cheap.
Yep. Or even like, as I was just thinking right now, like even like, I wonder if like you could do something like, you know, every kid now has a water bottle at practice. Like, could you do a sticker, you know, like or something like that, and they could put it on their water bottle, or you know, what? I mean, yeah. I think the bigger thing is just the recognition more so than what they get out of it. But. Well, I tell you what, unless we have any questions, thank you so much for coming out, and thanks to all of you guys for presenting and sharing all of your great ideas, and we sure appreciate it.
Could I ask a general question? So at Apple Valley this year, we are going through a big change. We don't have 2 head coaches this year. Our boys head coach stepped down because he had a kid. Coach Kylie Peterson is taking over the head coach of both programs. And then myself, and then a new coach coming on to our program, Tori and Amy. He is going to be the associate head girls coach. I'm going to be the associate head boys coach. We've had come out at the beginning of the year, like 130 guys, 120 girls last year, and of course that dwindles down as the year goes. Do you guys have any suggestions or things that you think would be like essential as far as like we're gonna have boys and girls do a lot of things together, we're gonna split them up into like as far as sprint workouts go, divvy them up between 3 different groups based on experience level, training level, those kinds of things. But this is gonna be a new experience for us at Up Valley, and it being a massive team, boys and girls, we're gonna have over 200 kids. Do you guys have any suggestions about how we go, if there's any things that you guys are like, this works really well, this doesn't work, any kind of things you can offer to me, kind of how to manage that?
Our numbers aren't nearly that big.
Yeah.
But like the first thing that popped into my mind is we've always just had 8 blocks, you know, like most tracks probably do. And last year we bought a second set of blocks so that now we can have 16, so we can just, maybe things like that, like thinking about like what are some of those things that are going to be limiting factors, for getting kids through. So if you have more than one set, that's going to be helpful. Or like if you're doing relay exchanges, one thing we started doing last year was we literally put, we broke the kids up into 4 different groups, and we used all 4 corners of the track, so maybe being a little more creative like that to try to spread kids out a little bit more. That's been something that we've done. I don't know, you guys have bigger teams, so maybe
Yeah, I would say, I mean, the beginning of the season, like we're in the same boat, you know, everyone's in the same boat, but there's so many kids and you're pretty limited on space when it's a bad spring. And so like hurdles, for instance, we just send it out to the kids, you know, week by week, like, hey, Monday is gonna be a girls hurdle day and Tuesday is gonna be a boys hurdle day. And so we split it that way, like probably at the beginning of the season, more so by gender. Once the season gets going, sometimes it's more of like a group A, group B, or whatever you wanna call it. I mean, it could be group pink, group purple, whatever. I mean, I don't wanna hurt anyone's feelings, but, you know, and it's kind of a high jump, for instance, you know, instead of having to like keep moving the bar up and down, it's like, all right, anyone that's a 5-foot high jumper, you know, or higher, like you're gonna go at this time. And then now, like, anyone that is below a 5-foot jumper, like you're gonna go at this time. So I mean, we try to be a little bit more efficient with abilities once we know the abilities, probably after the first couple of meets, and that way, you know, the drills that you do with each group are gonna be different, you know, depending on, again, their abilities and what you can do with them. So that makes it a little bit more manageable instead of like so much labor intensive of literally moving the standards up and down, or, you know, just approach work and what kind of drills you can do. So we split it up at the beginning of the season by gender and then more by ability, like once the season gets going.
Okay.
And then I don't feel like it's very effective to have 300 athletes listening to one person at a time. That doesn't work for us. So it might be, I mean, Kylie's gonna, you know, it'll be good for her to like to talk to everyone, obviously, but sometimes there might be days where it might be better, you know, for each of you guys to like talk to each group.
Yep.
You know, they might be listening a little bit better.
I'm sure we'll do our fair share of splitting boys and girls up, but we're gonna try to do more things like we all warm up together, maybe we split into groups of 3s and boys and girls are doing the same thing, and our throwers are gonna warm up with us a couple days a week too, and just more team bonding kind of, and everybody getting to know each other type things like that. And
One thing that we do, like to kind of help kind of separate ours in warm up as well, when you're all kind of in the same gym, is we'll split like we'll have our boys and girls go separate, and we have kind of a more confined, like it's an indoor motion warm up, but it's designed to be done in a smaller space. And if you'd like, I can sure email you what we do. But anyway, and then off to the side we'd set up like some low level plyos and have like one gender doing like some low level plyos while the other team is doing more of a traditional warm up and then flip flop. Again, it's just coexisting in the same space a little bit better.
yeah, it's gonna be tough. We gotta share our main gym with boys volleyball now this spring, so that's gonna be.
Sometimes we'll have like a workout in which it's somewhat of a rotation, you know,
Yeah.
like what, and it might be mixed, it might be boys and girls together, it might be separate, whatever, you know, whatever suits your needs, but, you know, and we'll just, hey, you know, Jay, whatever, you're gonna be in charge of this one, you're gonna have this corner of the gym. You know, Park, he'll be up on the second floor, you know, so sometimes we just try to rotate through the
Circuits.
general workout,
Okay.
wherever there's space.
It's gonna be the issue. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you guys for coming. We sure appreciate it, and enjoy the social tonight.
Thank you.
It's funny, you probably won't see, since we're in different sections, different conferences, different divisions, it's just so funny, when you just come down here and you see faces and you don't know.
I know.
How you doing?
I was gonna put my phone number on there.
I feel like
I do, yes.
you know, Mr. Bendis,
Totally not, are you?
Like, well, here it is, yeah. But we are for troop team. So that's the thing, so we're triple A, but troop
That's the good thing is like, is if you guys would make
Yes, yes.
it's that weird, like, you're in that weird, purgatory.
Okay.
That could be, yeah. Definitely some strange things like that.
I mean, that's,
I
have a great day.
This has which one would you like me to? Oh yeah, different. Sorry. I mean, they're all like stitched together. Okay.
I literally have like a third one.
Well, now we gotta go. Now we gotta get other people to do it.
And then
Two of them were here and then
I think so.
one was on each.
No, I think
Because some people responded to my one.
Okay, so they did. I was wondering.
But there must not have been that very many kids. Because some kids weren't in it. I had Jasper was in it.
I had to re-walk in, so I'm wondering if people got logged out.
Like if we should just start a new one. Like I should have asked my mom if she got if she got.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, maybe we should just start a new one, but
At least
we have
liked it last
this
year when
one.
I think Schmidt would send out
Maybe
to remind like the something.
Jay didn't want to come and watch you present today, or what? I still get checked into my hotel room here, so I'll get that done.
We have never done that.
Well, you're close enough, though.
I know,
like,
but
where-
I do wish that like, probably not every year, because I mean, it'd be a lot of money, but, you know, every couple years, every few years, I would love it if our whole staff could come. Like, it'd be fun, and I think that when we talk about the kids bonding, like, our staff never gets a real opportunity
Yeah.
to do, a whole lot together. I mean, we might go over something after a meet, but.
I don't have a choice, I'm
Is this
from
still going?
far enough away.
Yeah, exactly.
video this? Is it still going?
Oh, yeah, I should probably turn this off here.